my ghoul, my precious ghoul. That's how he died.
Ash and Zach are super smart. They went to college and learned a bunch of stuff. And Bo and Andrew didn't go to college because that's just the way life goes sometimes. What happens when you put them together and you try to make them learn? Grab your friends, let's listen together on Get Dumped on an Info Dump Podcast.
Do you want to do it in unison? Let's do it in unison. All right, are you ready? 3, 2, 1. Hey, welcome to Get Dumped On Info Dump Podcast. Bo, you didn't do it. Hey, welcome to Get Dumped On Info Dump Podcast. I am your best friend, Zach. And this is the podcast where 4 friends get together, occasionally with a 5th friend, to discuss their special interest knowledge and info dump upon each other. I am joined today on this fine, fair evening or morning, or whenever you're listening to this podcast, because as you know, this is always broadcast live every single time that you click on it. I am joined by Andrew. Say hi, Andrew.
Hi, Andrew.
That's Andrew. I'm joined by Bo. Say hi, Bo.
Hey, Bo.
Hey, it's Bo.
Hey,
I am joined by Ash.
You didn't
Say hi,
You didn't tell
Ash.
me to say hi. Oh, hi.
And who we also have here is the unofficial, occasional, and awesome with an O at the beginning.
Awesome.
A member of the
Fuck is
podcast.
that?
Oh, like I was doing like an O's thing. Didn't work out in the end.
Unofficial starts with a U.
Yeah, but there's an O after the U. So
You could have said
There's
official
an N.
at this
That's
point.
an N
but,
after
you know.
the U.
listen. Okay, Justin's here.
Oh, hey, what's up?
Hey, there's
I'm
Justin.
here too.
Hey, what's up? It's
Okay.
Justin.
Okay,
It's me.
That's
That's a lot of ums I'm going to need to cut out.
I was
Jesus
gonna say
fucking
that.
Christ.
You leave
I
all
was
those
gonna say
in.
that was a special treat for Andrew. I did that just for you.
You've already done like 40 ums up to this. I'm going to actually, at this point right now, I'm going to stop editing. I'm going to go back and listen to how many ums I cut out, and then I'm going to re-record a little bit with my own voice and saying how many ums I cut out right now. Future Andrew here. There have been 17 ums in this episode so far.
Ash will be our host for today. If you listened to last week's episode, then you know that we did a part 1. Now we have a part 2. Would you like to recap for the audience? And actually, hey, Bo, how about you recap for the audience what happened in the last episode?
God, yeah. Let's put Bo on the spot. So there's this king,
And then Ash give him a grade when he's done.
This king is fucking around, right? And he just keeps fucking, but he's not doing it right for some reason because he doesn't get boys. So what he does is marry someone else, and then guess what? He doesn't get a boy. Now this guy's got 2 girls now. He's like, all right, I'm done with you. I'm gonna kill you, wife, and kill you, other wife. Now I'm the new wife. Guess what? I've got a boy now. But we left it at a turning point. Well, you say a cliffhanger of King Asshole.
That was perfect.
Yeah, I give it a 7 out of 10. It was pretty good.
Yeah,
That was a
that's lot
14 out
better
of
than I was
10.
expecting.
So for all of you listening, if you haven't listened to part 1, definitely go back, listen to part 2. It's where we talked about the first 3
If you're starting
of
at
the 6
part
wives.
2, what's wrong with you? Stop it.
Yeah,
Go.
it's a weird thing to do. Don't do that.
Did you mean to rhyme? If you're starting part 2, what's wrong with you?
Hey, there we
gonna
go.
rhyme.
I thought you were going to keep going.
Brought it back.
I'm only good at rhyme my name.
I'm going to give the same trigger warnings that I gave last time. We talk about child death. We talk about maternal loss. We talk about sexual abuse. It's still going. The story's still happening. We're doing it. So yeah, last time we talked about how Henry VIII ascended the English throne after his older brother had died. He married his brother's widow, Catherine of Aragon. They had a daughter, not able to have a son, starts looking for a way out of the marriage, is left struck by Anne Boleyn, spends 7 years trying to divorce Catherine. Pope says nope. Henry says, fuck this shit, I'm out. Breaks from the Catholic Church, establishes the Church of England. He's the supreme head. They declare his first marriage invalid and his subsequent marriage to Anne as legit. They have another daughter, 2 daughters, like Bo said. Catherine of Aragon dies. Henry's like, bro, I got to get me that son. Also, it turns out my wife is like cool and smarter than me, and it makes me really mad. Concocts a plan to kill Anne Boleyn. Totally works. 10 days later, he's married to Jane Seymour. Jane dies, giving birth to what Henry always wanted, a son. Does anyone want to guess what Henry does next?
Probably something reprehensible, but I just want to butt in and say that Pope Says Nope is a really good. That's I'm gonna that's gonna be my echolalia for the next 3 weeks.
Pope says nope.
It's a line from the Six musical where they talk about this story. So
Nice.
little hidden gem for those who like the Six musical.
Wait, what was the question?
Do you want to guess what Henry's gonna do?
What
next?
happens next?
I want to say that he accidentally sits on his son and kills him.
Wow, that would be
honestly,
really
I can see it
tragic.
again.
Wow.
Too many jousting concussions made him think he reverted back to bird form, and so he was trying to keep his son warm.
He can't joust anymore.
ominously say in the last one.
Did you say back to bird? When did he start with bird
Well,
form?
he's an idiot. So
You mean okay?
He
That-
can't
that
joust
is
anymore. Also,
true.
he was in that really bad jousting accident, and he no longer can joust and
That's
never
what I'm
will for the
saying.
rest of his life.
He had to retire.
You know
He's-
the English were born birds back in that time, right? They evolved.
Oh, of
They all
course.
came from
How could I
eggs.
forget?
Yeah,
Wow.
that's why.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why it's actually England is a corruption of Eggland, which is the ancestral name of the island.
Oh, thank you for going along with it with me. I appreciate you.
I remember you kind of ominously left the fate of this boy child in
What do you mean?
up in the air, just saying that he survived infancy.
He did.
Whom I'm
Which
going to
is-
assume is probably named Henry IX.
or Arthur.
His name is actually Edward.
Oh,
The first.
like the Twilight guy.
Oh my gosh,
Gross.
they got it from Twilight. So as we know
of
from
course,
the
you would
from
know
the
about
rhyme,
the Twilight guy, Twilight reader.
divorced, beheaded, died.
Got 'em.
That was the first three. Up next, what we have in store: divorced, beheaded, survived. So
Spoilers.
we've known this from the beginning. So Henry's now 46 years old after Jane Seymour has died, leaving him with his infant son. And he's on the hunt for a new wife. Who would have saw it coming?
Yeah, you trying to get a new young wife? Classic 46-year-old behavior, midlife crisis.
How many hours after she died was he married?
It took 2 years for him to get married again.
That's astounding.
He was
Wow.
he took Jane's death really hard. He was depressed.
actually grieved.
He wore he grieved. He wore black for months. Talks for a marriage were spun up pretty quickly, but it took a while to secure the marriage.
Real quick, Ash, the marriage before, how long was it before he was engaged to somebody else after his wife died?
He executed Anne Boleyn the next day. He was betrothed to Jane, aka engaged, and 10 days later they were married.
Okay, so a little bit of a longer turnaround this time.
A little
Got
bit of
it.
a longer turnaround. So he had the one son, but that was definitely not enough for him. I mean, you need a queen. If you can't have one, why not have one? Also, he himself was the spare. He was the second son. So he was like, I have the one, but to really lock it in, I could do with another one. He had tapped the pool of available ladies in England pretty good already. And so they started looking to a foreign wife to secure political bonds, or rather his advisors
Spanish chick.
started pushing.
The classic mail order bride situation.
His advisors
Jesus.
started pushing really heavily.
45-year-old men and mail order brides from a foreign country name a more iconic duo.
Yeah, that was
Oh,
coming.
they were back to that. Cool.
The royalty, I mean, like his first marriage was a political one in that they wanted to strengthen ties between England and Spain. And so he had not been engaging in foreign marriage for a while now. So they needed some help from their allies. This turns out to be a little bit difficult because he wasn't the most popular guy, if you can imagine that.
What?
Anne Boleyn's execution had absolutely shocked Europe. Foreign nationals weren't super keen to send their daughters away to this insane man who might kill them.
Yeah, that's a good call. I want to go ahead and wrap that up as good job, parents.
Yeah, maybe don't marry Henry. Also, because he had royally pissed off the Pope and split with the Catholic Church, he needed to look at places that weren't Spain or France. He needed allies that were sympathetic to his Reformationist ideals, and this led his advisors to
Japan.
Germany.
Oh, Germany.
As we talked a little bit about last time, because that's the home of Martin Luther and the Reformation and the 99 Theses, when they were like, hey, the Catholic Church is fucking bunk. I don't want to jive with you anymore. That's not what he said.
There ain't no pope in Japan. Just a heads up.
Pope says nope, so I said nope.
So I said,
Yeah.
no, to the Pope.
Nope to the Pope.
An alliance with Germany was especially pertinent at this time because France and Spain had entered an alliance with each other, which was leading to fear in England that they would have to fight against two strong states at their doorstep at once. So Henry was open to marrying for political gain, but he was not open to marrying someone that he thought was ugly.
Come on.
So instead of relying on his advisor's descriptions of people, he sent along his court painter, Hans Holbein the Younger, to paint portraits of a bunch of prospective brides for him.
Wait. He wanted him to create Tinder for him?
Yeah, he was like, go paint their portraits, bring them back to me so I can see if they're fugly
And
or
he's
not.
like, I'll swipe right or left.
Well,
on
no,
them.
he's not. He can't
That's
swipe.
so-
He's just throwing it left, throwing it
He
right.
just throws
throwing it,
tossing them across the room.
One's in the
same
fire,
thing.
one's on his nightstand.
Funny enough, that's actually what they talk about basically for her song in 6 is that it was kind of like a Tinder profile that he swiped on.
I wonder how many lied about their height. Big thing.
But
Big thing.
cool thing for this, if I can ask about art history itself,
Yeah, go ahead.
is that a lot of artists being commissioned for royalty or, anyone of importance, those kind of people didn't like having their flaws displayed. So artists would often take embellishments and kind of do a little personal beautification so that way
original
they
Photoshop.
didn't,
Yeah.
lose their commission or get beheaded or lose their job or, they kind of took a little bit of a creative license to make them look better.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the only way that people would see your image a lot of the time was from these commissioned portraits. And so portraits were often commissioned to make you look strong and beautiful and like at your best. A little
eating
light
turkey legs.
airbrushing in there, a little Photoshop never hurt no one, And Henry actually knew this, and so he specifically said to Hans Holbein, paint them as they are, don't embellish them. I want you to don't flatter them. I want you to give me the real unfiltered #no filter. But to say that and to actually do it are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
And portraiture painting, even more specifically, was a phenomenon new to the Renaissance. It was new to this time. It was really just coming about. Portraiture really popped off because aspects of art like perspective and light and shadow were now actually being included in portraiture. In general, Henry's court really embraced the new ideas of this time, especially in architecture, music, and art. And most of the Renaissance artists in England at this time were from other countries, including Hans Holbein. But portraiture as we know it was really only just in its beginnings at this time. And Hans Holbein was a really, really good one. Let's paint a mind picture of Henry VIII just real quick before we get into it.
Okay.
He's got 2 infected leg ulcers that never heal, leaving him in horrible pain. They're oozy. It leaves him irritable. He's probably smelly.
Gross.
He's gaining weight constantly because he's unable to exercise or joust because of his leg thing, and he compensates for the pain by indulging in food and drink. As time goes on, he gets continuously more irritable, more paranoid, more irrational, more in pain. He's said to have a really wicked temper. He's got a scraggly beard. He was getting pretty far from the glory days of his youth where he had jousted and sparred and wrestled with great zeal and skill. So I just want you to throw out that's what he's like.
Have you ever seen Mad Max Fury Road?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal movie.
The People Eater.
Oh, yeah. People eater for sure.
That's exactly what I envision.
That's the guy with the gold nose, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I imagine Jabba the Hutt.
And he wasn't at his worst yet.
Picha Wookie Chewbacca.
That-
Whoa,
with
oh my
an
God,
English accent.
is Henry in the room right now? And he wasn't at his worst yet. He was just along that line. But
So he's a solid 6 out of 10, is what you're saying.
this is the man that's overly concerned with how beautiful his bride is.
Bring me another. Bring me a woman. Make her pretty.
This is like a nerd on Twitter who's like, Scarlett Johansson has a little bit of cellulite on her butt. 2 out of 10 would not bang.
Dude, that's like you're saying the nerds on Twitter who are all gross. They're all turning on what's her name, Margot Robbie, because she was in a movie that was semi about feminism. Now they're like, she's mid. It's like, okay, calm down.
And so if she was standing in front of you, you would piss yourself.
Yeah, you would shit your pants and then fucking somehow it would end up on your face because of how the force of the poop.
It's bouncing poop. It's very it just bounces back up and hits your face.
Just bouncing Betty.
It's like flubber. So Hans Holbein went all around,
Yeah.
painted a couple portraits. Eventually, their search led them to Germany, to the Cleves family, who had 2 daughters of marrying age, Anne and Amalia. These were the daughters of Maria of Eulichberg and John III, Duke of Cleves. Anne's birth date is thought to be around 1515, making her about a year older than his eldest daughter.
They're Germany? Germany?
Yes, in Germany, in the state of Cleves.
The Duke of Cleves. No, that's Netherlands. Never mind. Keep going. I don't know why I always go Holland. I always go Holland.
Yeah, and you was like, that's why we don't have any German listeners, because you just give them freaking.
We have
Holland.
We have German.
listeners.
We've had 10%
Not
German
anymore.
listeners
This
since the
is
beginning.
plumber.
I'm here to fix your pipes.
Every little European country goes Holland or Dutch or Swedish.
You also can't do
Accent.
England, and it always goes into Australia.
It always goes
Go
Australian
ahead, dude.
every single
give
time.
Give me one right now.
Like, oh, I'm King Henry.
You didn't even try.
bring me a winch and some. I'm a bogan. Yeah, okay. Keep going. I'm gonna do a shoey with my knight with my knight armor foot. There I go.
What? With your
Knight armor
what?
foot?
You know what I'm saying.
No,
I literally
that's why
didn't.
No, we don't.
The foot part of the armor. The was the shoe of the armor. I don't know if there's a word
That's
for
called
it.
it's called a sabaton.
Sabaton.
Oh, I'm gonna do a shoey with a sabaton. Okay, go.
We don't know much about Anne's early life, but we do know she was educated to read and write in German, and she was educated in needlework and cooking, classic women's work. Cleves was a pretty small state politically, but it was powerful, and it was very sympathetic to the Reformation. Anne's brother-in-law had led a Protestant rebellion against the rule of the Catholic Church just a few years earlier. And so Hans Holbein painted Anne in what is now a famous portrait, brought it back to England, and the king was allegedly very excited by her likeness. And I guess she met his standards.
He's like, hey, did you take any other ones? Maybe like showing more ankle? And he's like, do you know how long it takes to paint, bro?
It takes me 3 hours to do a sketch. And it's
He's like, no.
it's not her whole body. It's a plastic portrait where it's like it shows her hand, like her body down to like her hands.
But what's the portrait called? I would like to look at it.
I would just look up Anne of Cleves' portrait.
It's about. I think I see it right here.
Cleves portrait.
She's face on. She's wearing a German style hood, a red dress with gold detailing
ketchup and
around the
mustard.
neck. She's got lots of necklaces. I think she looks very beautiful.
She's mostly clothes.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but have you seen those hands? They got it going on.
She's wearing like the biggest clothes I've ever seen. Like I don't know how this person looks like at all.
You could see her face.
I don't know what her hair looks like. You can't see her hair. You can see her face, but you can't see her hair. You can't see anything other than
Sounds
her
like you
fingers
need
and
a
her
lot.
nose.
Sounds like you need a lot to judge a woman.
To judge a woman to marry.
And that was
Wow.
all that Henry needed. And
It was
Thomas
like, oh,
Cromwell,
shit.
the king's
This
advisor,
German chick. Let's go.
she looks good. Cromwell really
She
touted
looks
her
as good as
beauty.
a schnitzel.
He pushed heavily for the king to marry one of the Cleves daughters, and once he saw that Henry liked Anne, he was talking Anne up. He was touting her beauty. He was like, "Oh, she's the most beautiful. She's super nice. Everyone loves her. She's the best. You're gonna love her. She's so great." So the king was really excited. He agreed to marry her. The contracts were signed, and it was time for Anne to make her way to England. It would take about a year for the contracts and the travel to all come together, and for Anne to get to England. There's no record at all of how Anne felt during this time. You have to imagine that there's a fair bit of apprehension there going into the lion's den with Henry.
Hey, so this guy is great. I know this person that you're going to marry is going to be fantastic. You're going to go. You're going to be a queen of an entire country. And, it's Henry VIII.
Just to say what?
So what happened to his ex-wives? I'd be like, they're all
Look,
gone.
They didn't really work out. You could fix him. You could fix him.
You can fix him.
Yeah, so
Be the one.
with that in mind, she set off for England in the autumn of 1539. During her trip, she reportedly asked to learn Henry's favorite card games. She took dinner with her English hosts. She tried
Blackjack.
to study up on the culture that she was emigrating to. At the end of the year, she had finally reached England and was told that in a few days they would make it to London, where she would finally meet the king. But Henry had other plans.
What?
In anticipation of her arrival, Henry and some of his friends went to where she was to surprise her. He devised a perfect first meeting. In keeping with the traditions of French chivalry and this like romantic love that we talked about last time, this Arthurian romance that Henry was a big fan of, Henry decided that he was going to disguise himself before meeting Anne. These traditions, like we talked about, were really popular with Henry in the court. Like this idea of true love, like if their love was true, Anne was going to recognize him immediately or be drawn to him instinctively, and it was going to be love at first sight, and it was going to be so great.
More like instinctively because he fucking smelled like shit.
Oh, got him.
Oh my God, Henry ain't gonna recover no more because Zach just burnt him.
Ow! So on New Year's Day
Probably make them smell better.
of 1540, he donned a costume, possibly dressing up like a knight, and he went into Anne's room.
How?
It's creepy.
What?
Now, let's take a look at this from Anne's perspective.
How often do knights go into people's rooms?
Well, I watched House of
it's not the most
Dragons.
common.
That one girl went into that one dragon's lady's room. He was a knight. If my basis is off Game of Thrones, often. Carry on.
It's not the most
What?
common, but also she was raised in Germany in German court. So she wouldn't have had any of this like cultural knowledge of this like French chivalry in England or like this Arthurian romance. That just wasn't something that was a part of her upbringing. And so she probably wouldn't have really known that that's a thing that was happening.
She was scared as shit.
She also thought that she wasn't going to meet the king until she got to London. She also didn't speak English. Not well, at least.
Great.
That's two of them there right now that didn't speak English, right? Or am I
Well,
misremembering
that was Arthur, the brother.
Yeah,
When
Catherine
he
didn't
met
speak English
Catherine.
when she got to England.
Okay.
But by the time Henry knew her, she spoke English. Anne didn't really speak English. She probably knew it a little bit, but like not great. And so this fat dude with an unkempt beard like waltzes into her room, is acting overly familiar with her.
Hey, bro, I'm a knight.
So she, how do you think?
Heavily panting.
How would you have reacted to this?
Badly.
Oh, Mr.
Screaming?
Knight. I thought it was daytime, but it looks like a night is here.
Knight. I don't know what that was.
This knight is in my room. She treated him coolly.
Ay, scheiße.
She also knew that like the last queen got beheaded for unfaithfulness, and so like she was not about to fuck around. She kept him at a distance. She treated him very coolly. Some accounts say she even like pushed him away or like put her arm out to like keep him from coming closer when he tried to hug her. And he was extremely insulted, and it set their marriage off on a terrible foot.
Fucking moron. He set that standard by walking into a room not dressed as king.
She was supposed to be like, "Oh, you're so handsome. I love you so much." Instead, she was
In a
like,
place
"Who
where
is
they weren't
this?
supposed to
You're
meet."
a stranger? I don't know."
Oh, Mr. Knight, you're so handsome. Why don't you guard me while I sleep for some reason? Yeah.
What the hell?
Oh,
Some
yeah, accent.
accounts even say that he left the room, changed clothes, and came back, but her reception even still wasn't what he wanted because she was like kind of confused and she didn't like gush over him and she stayed very
didn't
reserved.
speak fucking English,
She didn't
dog.
speak English. And in
He's like,
general,
now he's dressed as a king. That's crazy. There's a crazy man in my room.
This is weird. And in general, Anne would have acted really differently to the Tudor ladies that Henry knew well. She was more reserved. Again, she didn't speak English. She was dressed, like you remarked earlier, in heavy, bulky German dress. The style was seen as ugly to English people at the time.
This was a style at the time.
She wasn't raised to enjoy music or dance, which were really popular parts of Henry's court at the time.
That's weird. I was on her side until just now.
Well, later she loved to dance when she got to England. Like she learned to play music. She loved to dance at court when she got there. But like she just wasn't raised that way. You can't blame her for her parents being really strict and no fun.
Yeah.
He also had apparently thought that Cromwell had talked her up a little bit too much, thinking that she didn't live up to her portrait. He said apparently that he was disappointed that her nose was a little too large, a feature that was hidden in the portrait because she was painted sitting straight on and not to the side.
I'm looking right at this painting right now, and that nose is bigger proportionally.
And she did have a larger nose.
It's proportionally bigger than everything else on her face. So this guy did a good job of painting.
Yeah, and people, like other people who weren't Henry, praised Hans Holbein's accuracy, especially with Anne, and said that they thought that it actually really captured her likeness. But Henry was just not having it. He was not excited with how she was reacting to him. He was like, "Well, she's ugly anyway." Exactly like what Zach just said. Well, she's mid.
No,
Actually,
that's incels. Like, when they ask chicks out and then they're like, no, and they're like, well,
You're ugly anyway.
And you're like, but you asked me out. So
This dude's such an incel.
Yeah.
yeah, he's like, well, do you want to be queen? And she's like, yeah. He's like, but you're ugly though, because you don't like me. She's like, but you asked me to be queen. So
Well, he apparently after their first meeting, Henry like immediately went to Cromwell and was like, "I don't want to marry her." He famously said, "I like her not. I like her not." So it's funny when you read that in a Borat accent too. I like her not.
Bo? Bo?
You want to say it like Borat?
No.
Zach, do you want to say it like Borat?
I'm not a fucking monkey. I don't dance on command.
I like her not.
Oh, okay, but Zach's the new Bo.
Exactly. From her portrait.
Hey, I'm Bo.
Hi, Bo.
I'm Bo.
I'm Zach. Let's talk about RoboCop. I like RoboCop. I'm Zach now, by the way. I like RoboCop. It's a good film. Don't you talk about Final Destination with me. Not Final Destination. The Butterfly Effect.
Butterfly
'cause
Effect.
I hate that movie so much. I'm Zach.
Now that we have our identity settled.
Can I be Justin? Can I be Justin?
No.
Sure, yeah, you can be Justin.
There's only one Justin.
I'm Justin, and I'm a D&D master, and I have a baby. My name is Justin. My name is Justin.
You okay, Justin?
I'm-
Seems like you got
that's
hit in
it.
the head.
I'm a World War
that's
I
all, that's all you know.
reenactor. I know the names
Okay,
of all
all right.
the different parts
I
of
like
a suit of armor.
leather working. I'll make you a wallet, but you have to pay me.
That's how this works.
I have a lot of specific tools.
Get that back.
Why would
sis.
you not-
Okay, all right.
Bo just wants free shit. He's
we're
mad
getting
about
off
it.
of track. Okay. So from Anne's portrait, Henry was expecting this like dainty, demure woman, and what he got instead was someone tall, big boned, and strong featured. So all of the things that you
Hell
guys
yeah,
pointed
she's a
out
handsome
that you
woman.
can't tell
Yeah,
about
honestly,
someone
that sounds great to me.
from a portrait, he was mad about.
Oh, baby Henry, good woman. Yeah. Sorry.
He tried to get out of the marriage, but the wheels were already turning. He couldn't stop the machine. And they were married 6 days later on January 6th, 1540.
You know, that's
January.
like the second
That's
worst thing to happen on Jet Day. Yeah,
Damn
we
it.
both got it. We both got it.
Baby.
So okay, wait. The wheels are already in motion for him to do that. He didn't want to marry her, but he did.
Yeah.
What? Okay, this man is notorious for doing shit, whatever the fuck he wants all the time. Why couldn't he have just said no?
He very well could have, but communication and travel take a long time. Also, there are dowries to be paid. There's like finances that are getting entangled. There's political treaties. So there's a lot of things where if he would have just said no, it would have caused a really big problem. And so he was like, okay, I'll just marry her. Like it was already happening.
Fine.
She
I
was
will.
24 and he was 48.
Disgusting.
Wow.
The marriage was celebrated publicly, but in reality, it was a disaster and it never got any better. They didn't get along. Henry didn't like her. Their wedding night apparently didn't improve the situation. The morning after, Henry was said to have told Cromwell, quote, I liked her before, not well, but now I like her much worse. And he told Cromwell they were unable to have sex and the marriage was never consummated.
Probably because his fucking legs didn't work.
Yeah.
That's fair.
He used to be so good at writing, but not anymore.
Not anymore.
Yeah, he just, all he had to do was write her face, and she was like 9.
I think that if he wrote her face, she would die.
I mean, that's probably what he wants, right?
It'd probably smell so bad.
God.
And just like oozing pus all over everywhere.
God.
God.
Yeah.
Anne apparently tried to ask Cromwell for advice in these months when she could tell that it was going bad. And he was a coward and he was so scared of upsetting the king further that he refused to see her.
Okay, imagine he's sitting in an office, right? Like he's got a big desk, you know. It's not huge, but it's big. Not as big as the king's. But he's sitting behind that desk and he's chilling. He's doing he's got his little feather that he dips into ink and he's like making parchments and shit. And then she like knocks on the door and like comes in and goes, "Hello." And he just pretends she's not there.
Hello? No, it'd
And
be
he's
more
just
like
like,
she's.
Did
she
I
said,
hear anything? And she's like waving her hand in front of his face, and he's like, nope, nope, no.
No, it was like she would like send her attendant to like go try and get a meeting with him, and then they were met with April in that episode of Parks and Rec where she's like, "I'll see you on the 32nd of March-tember. Does that sound good?" And refused to see her. Cromwell
Guy's a
recognized
dick.
his error in trying to get these two together, and he recognized that the king wasn't happy, and so quickly they shifted into trying to end the marriage as soon as possible. So
More like Crom bad.
yeah, got him.
Nope.
So after 6 months of marriage, they
Shot her.
testified to the archbishops that the marriage should be annulled because it was non-consensual on Henry's part. They didn't give a fuck about Anne or anything about what Anne wanted, and Anne wasn't even present at this hearing. But it was
Wait. Non-consensual. Based on the guy who sent a guy out to paint pictures of women that came back, decided, flaunted that picture everywhere, showed up early to marry this bitch, and then now it's not consensual.
Nope, he didn't want to. Also,
Oh, wow.
because it was unconsummated, it was legally allowed for an annulment to take place. And
You know,
remember, because they broke with the Catholic Church, they don't give a shit about what the Pope thinks. They only have to care about what the Church of England thinks. And Henry's the head of the Church of England. So it went good. He also argued that he wanted to marry for love and not politics because Cromwell had pushed him to marry Anne. But instead, he already had his eyes on a beautiful young girl in Anne's court named Catherine Howard. And we'll talk a little bit more about Catherine Howard later. Also during this time,
close his goddamn eyes,
right? Put horse blinders on him because Jesus,
dude.
Go run your fucking country, dude.
Yeah, and an iron fucking pair of underwear. Like, stop.
Can't run my country without a proper wife. God.
Also during this time, the alliance between France and Spain had ended, so the need of a foreign alliance was less important. Like I said, this passed really easily. Annulment at this time was actually kind of unheard of. It differs from divorce in that for a divorce to happen, it would have to mean that a marriage happened. And annulment means that the marriage was never valid, so the marriage never existed. So basically everybody gets off scot-free. Wave of the hand, this didn't happen. Everybody can marry whoever they want now.
Mulligan.
What about the
Mulligan.
dowries?
I actually don't know what happened to the dowry situation, but it was rectified with how Henry treated Anne after the divorce. So we'll get into the.
Did he lock her in a tower like the Frenchman romantic guy that he is?
He didn't actually.
Wow.
I'll get to that in a second.
It was a condo in Florida.
He actually gave her multiple properties, and a lot of riches.
But they were all timeshares.
They were all timeshares.
In the trial, they had talked about how the marriage was unconsummated. And that was kind of a problem because the king's inability to consummate would have made him look bad, like across the board. Like he wasn't virile, like he wasn't manly. This is part of why Anne Boleyn was beheaded, because during her trial, it had kind of been suggested that Henry was impotent and couldn't satisfy her, and that's why she went outside of the marriage. He didn't want that bad press again. And so to avoid this, they really did Anne of Cleves dirty. They used cruel and graphic descriptions of her and her body to explain why he was unable to consummate the marriage. These descriptions direct the blame firmly away from Henry and just put it all onto Anne. And
she didn't have any ulcers. Gross.
Ew. And it earned her some really mean nicknames that have unfortunately stuck through history. Notably coming out of this way after her death was she became referred to as the Flanders mare. She had a horse face. She became known to history as the bride that was too ugly for the king, which is really rude and honestly, like, not even accurate, you know, because he's
if
such
you've
a
seen
baby.
pictures of the king, holy crap, this is an ugly fucking dude. He looks so ugly.
Yeah. And in those ones, he probably made himself look nicer.
Right?
Yeah, like it's a fucking painting.
That's the glow up.
And you know, yeah, the
That's the
painting guy,
glow
you know,
up.
that painter was like, if I draw this guy accurately, I'm gonna fucking die. So I'm gonna do my best to like make him look a little better, and that still looks very ugly.
Hey,
Yeah.
his legs look fine. Everything above
Yeah,
the
he's like
legs.
standing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
but
he
still.
doesn't have any problems. He was totally good and strong. And
Nothing
was
wrong
only
with his wiener.
nothing wrong with his wiener at all. He totally could use it all the
It
time
definitely
whenever he
wasn't a
wanted.
little curly Q like a pig's tail. It was definitely not like that.
Anne was only formally told of their annulment 3 days before it happened. She apparently took the news pretty well, like at least
She's like,
calmly.
sweet.
She was
Oh,
mad.
Oh, okay, good. Close the door. Fuck yes.
Yeah, right. She honestly seems like she was mostly
Du Hast by Rammstein starts playing in the she's fucking breaking shit.
she was honestly mostly to outwardly the most like frightened because she was worried about her position in England and also her life. She didn't know what was going to happen. People apparently tried to comfort her and say, like, you know, it's okay. You haven't done anything wrong. Everything's going to be all right.
There.
But she kept a really brave face about the whole thing. She kept any private thoughts or feelings she had to herself. And she wisely accepted the annulment without a fight, which was honestly the best thing for her that she could have done.
Sorry, I said there. There in German is dort. So dort.
Dort. I have a question, and let me know and stop me if we're getting ahead, or maybe I wasn't really paying attention, but I think I was paying attention.
His name is Henry.
Oh, got it. Thank you. Carry on. Did we ever get? Did we ever find out about his son?
His son is still alive at this point.
Okay.
He's
Okay.
chilling, just being a baby. You know, he's like 2.
Oh, he's still a baby as well. Okay.
Yeah. This is 6 months later after they
Oh
got married.
fuck! Okay, that's a time frame.
Yeah,
okay.
very quick. Very
Want to
quick.
make sure. Okay,
Yeah.
like
And so the acronym that we've been talking about, the rhyme breaks down a little bit because it's divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived, but really it should be annulled. But
It's not as catchy.
it's not as catchy, so I'm fine
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah. Marketing.
So what happens to her afterwards?
So afterwards, Henry was so grateful for her cooperation and how great she took the whole thing and how willing she was to annul the marriage, and also probably to avoid any conflict with her family via allocation of wealth. He presented his former queen with a very generous settlement. He promised her that if she remained in England, she would be granted the honored title of the king's sister, and he would bestow upon her vast amounts of property
Gross.
and a bunch of
What?
estates.
I'll adopt you.
No, just like they'll have a more
Sister
familial
from another
relationship.
mister.
Sister from another mister. We're homies.
Yeah.
This is the weirdest alimony I've ever heard of.
He gave her Anne Boleyn's childhood home and a bunch of other property. He
That's
also
That's
fucked
weird.
up. That's
She-
fucked up.
Fuck.
right. She also would receive an annual
Here's my
income
dead wife's fucking house.
£500.
All of
she's
her
not
stuff's
using
there.
it. She's not using it. So like,
I mean, her family maybe was. Why is it okay?
Well, not
Yeah,
even
they
hot
probably
anymore.
evicted them.
yeah.
Like you
Never
gotta
forget
get
why
out.
you're here.
But that or they still live there and they're just like, here, you get to live here now too. And be like, this is
hey,
awkward.
Hey, Anne. She received an annual income of £500 as well as all of the revenue from the various estates, and she was allowed to keep all of her belongings and jewels and clothing. And Anne readily accepted. With Henry's encouragement, she wrote to her family, assuring them she was safe and she wouldn't be returning to Germany. And the one piece of jewelry that she did return was her wedding ring, and she asked that it be broken into pieces as a thing of which she knew no force or value. Basically saying, yeah, that's fine. I don't care. I'm not going to pine for you. You don't have to pine for me. Everything's cool. We're chill. Thank you.
This ring is fucking worthless. Here you
Yeah.
go.
And her newfound position in life really offered her something extremely rare that most women at this time never experienced.
Autonomy.
Autonomy and
Orgasms.
freedom, baby.
No.
She spent her time traveling between her estates, hunting, drinking. She learned to dance. She would gamble all the time. She learned to enjoy English fashions, and she was one of the richest women in England behind the literal royalty. She stayed in good graces with the king for the rest of his life, was known as the king's beloved sister, behind only Henry's new wives and his daughters. She was really friendly with his children. She maintained good relationships with all of them throughout her life. She was basically the same age as his eldest daughter. She never remarried, probably wanting to keep her fortunes and freedoms all to herself. She's like, I had a taste of marriage before, and let me tell you, it wasn't great.
Kind of
Dude,
mid.
so the king fucking
Kinda mid.
straight up did I like you, but only as a friend thing.
Yeah, essentially. And she
The
was
king's
great
sister.
with that. She was often seen dancing at court, conversing with everyone. She was really well liked. She ended up outliving all of Henry's subsequent wives and Henry himself. She lived long enough
Well, right
to
now
see,
she's outlived all of them so far.
Yep. She lived long enough to see two of his children be crowned.
Wait, how's Catherine, like Catherine of Aragon? How long did she live after the divorce? Is she still alive?
No.
I don't remember.
Catherine of Aragon
No, she
died
died a
in
while
the first
ago.
half, a very long time ago.
Okay.
She died before Anne died. Remember, because
Yeah.
they wore.
She died
they
like I
wore
think it
yellow?
was a
Oh yeah,
little
because they
less
wore
than
yellow
a
to
decade.
yeah. Okay.
They
So-
weren't
Yep,
mocking. They were
yep.
holding her traditions for where she was from.
From
Right.
Spain.
From Barcelona. Please laugh at that.
Ha ha ha.
Sorry for interrupting.
Uh-huh.
We're going to jump ahead a little bit. After Henry died, she stopped getting paid by his household, so she had to pare down a little bit, sell some of her properties, downsize, and she lived a quiet life of domesticity. She had a brief run-in with politics with Henry's daughter, Mary, when she ascended to the throne by trying to arrange a marriage contract with Ferdinand of Austria, but it didn't pan out, and she really didn't take a lead in politics. She was almost implicated. She was implicated, but never charged in a treason plot at one point. But she managed to keep her business clean. She died in 1557 at the age of 41 in her manor at Chelsea House. The paper Holinshed's Chronicle memorialized her after her funeral, saying, "quote She was a lady of right commendable regard, courteous, gentile, a good housekeeper, and very bountiful to her servants."
How did she die?
Natural causes.
What?
Probably cancer.
That's sad.
People didn't live very long at this time. They think that she had cancer.
Yeah, it says
Now.
cancer. I just looked it up.
So yeah, I think that Anne was honestly the luckiest wife because her story is honestly pretty good. After she got out of her marriage with Henry, she was able to live a really rich and amazing life. She engaged in her hobbies. She had a really good time.
She ever remarry or anything?
She never remarried. She never had any children.
Oh, fucking, she single ladied up the whole time. She
Yep.
boss bitched it. Good for her.
She was like rich wine aunt who would like
love it.
travel and have a great time.
And you know she gave the best Christmas presents.
Y'all, you know it.
And like when you're like 16, she gave you a sip of her wine. She goes, "Don't tell your mother."
Although at this age it was probably like 10.
Still, yeah.
And while Anne was happily living it up with her fortune and her various houses and properties and reveling in her newfound freedoms, Henry was wooing another much younger girl named Catherine Howard. Roll back the clock a little bit. Henry has just gotten annulled from Anne of Cleves, and he has already set his sights on someone new. His next wife, Catherine Howard. This one is, to me, the saddest story, so buckle up. It's a pretty big bummer.
How can you...
This, oh no,
The whole thing's
this one's
been
kind of
sad.
fucked.
It's the whole thing's been sad, but this is very, very sad.
What does he,
so
like,
we're-
eat her in front of her kids or something?
Well, divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded.
Oh no!
So we know where
Another
this is
beheaded
going.
one.
So Catherine Howard was born somewhere between 1518 and 1527, though most scholars think it was closer to the latter half of those dates. So she was about 16 or 17 when Henry set his eyes on her. Her
One
family...
thing King Henry likes about those high school girls, thank you. Sorry.
Oh god! I'm just
Leonardo
thinking about this
DiCaprio.
Ye old high
old
school.
gross man trolling high schools.
I think
I mean, I
that
know
like
high school didn't
High school
even
didn't
up
exist,
until
but-
the 1970s, that was still a thing. Even 1980s.
And
It
I
wasn't
hate
until
It's
the
gross.
internet came around it started shaming people and we're like, "Hey, stop!"
Like,
And
stop
they're
doing
like, "Oh
that.
shit!"
Her family, the Howard family, was actually quite respected and powerful, but her particular branch of the family was less so. Her uncle was the Duke of Norfolk, who was a very powerful player at the time, and she had somewhere in the realm of 10 siblings and step-siblings, and she was among the youngest of those. Fun fact, she was the first cousin to Anne Boleyn and the second cousin to Jane Seymour.
What?
Huh.
All
What?
of the nobility were related at this time. Everyone was everybody's cousin. So her father was the third Howard son, so he had the most difficulty securing financial gain and a place for himself. He was also apparently kind of an asshole who angered a lot of people and was not so great with money because he liked to gamble and he was bad at it. So he was frequently in debt. He was always writing to more wealthy and hopefully more generous family members and friends to help him take care of his household and all of his fucking 10 kids. Also, Catherine's mother died when she was pretty young. So at about 8 years old, she was sent off to her step-grandmother's house, Agnes Tilney Howard, the Dowager Duchess of Norfolk. She was educated there like most other noblewomen. She could read and write. She was taught music. The Duchess had managed large households where she kind of had like a weird quasi-foster care situation going on, where she housed many wards, mostly children of aristocratic but poor relatives. They could all send their kids to the Dowager Duchess and she would pay for them and give them an education. So she had between like the wards and her attendants and the servants, there was dozens of people in her households. There was some education going on, but supervision was apparently pretty lax. The Duchess was often at court. She didn't seem to have any direct involvement with the upbringing of her various wards. So when Catherine was here, at the age of 12 or 13, her music teacher, a man named Henry Mannix, I don't know the best way to say it. Let's say he took a liking to her. She was around 13 and he was in his mid-20s. And they started a, I guess we'll say, relationship, if you can call it that. He took advantage of her for somewhere in the realm of a year before her step-grandmother found out. Upon learning the news, the Duchess repeatedly struck both of them, beat the crap out of them, and sent her music teacher away. A couple years
To
later,
camp.
to fucking anywhere else. She was just like, get the fuck out.
Just like any general location that's not fucking here, go.
And then around the age of 15 or 16, she was pursued by the then 23-ish year old secretary of the Duchess, a man named Francis Derham. Her and Derham had a public relationship. They called each other husband and wife. They exchanged gifts. They were often seen embracing and kissing. There was talk of much huffing and puffing in the common dormitories after dark.
Ooh.
Derham pursued Catherine quite aggressively, and their union only ended when Henry Mannix, angry and jealous at not being able to be in a relationship with Catherine, sent an anonymous letter, quote unquote anonymous, everybody knew it was him, to the Duchess, exposing their relationship. So Derham was sent away to Ireland, and in the meantime, it said that he asked Catherine to hold on to his savings, which was like £100, which was something that you would only ask of a wife. Like, it wasn't really a thing that you would do, asking someone to look over your money if you weren't like entangled in a relationship. I saw one video that said that Catherine was glad to have a break from Derham when he got sent away because she thought he was overly aggressive and intense, and she didn't super want to be in a relationship with him. I think that this came from a letter that she wrote a little bit later in her life and due to his actions a little bit in the story. But just know that, like, this 23-year-old man was pursuing her hard. Like, he wanted to be with her and didn't particularly care what she thought about it. Soon after this happened.
I don't like that. I'm gonna go and say that on the record.
No.
I don't like that.
It sucks.
Bo, what do you feel about this?
Ew.
What, Justin?
Yeah, I disapprove.
When you were 23,
that-
would you have wanted to date a 16-year-old?
No.
No. But it wasn't the style at the time.
Unfortunately,
Back
it was
Nobody likes
okay.
you.
Still, when is the last time you talked to a 16-year-old? They're all stupid.
Yeah, my niece and nephew.
Yeah, but you're in your 30s now. You're 30 now. Like, talking to a 16-year-old when you're 20, it's a little bit closer, but still gross. Like, you can still talk to him, but you're like, no, I didn't get away.
Honestly, this 16 to 23-year-old age gap is like the least concerning age gap in this story.
So true.
Yeah, because
But-
I know King Henry's fucking right around the corner at his old ass fucking ulcer age, like staring at this chick.
So soon after this, Catherine's uncle, the Duke of Norfolk, used his influence to get the now 16-year-old Catherine a job as a lady-in-waiting to the new Queen, Anne of Cleves. And before the annulment with Anne had taken place, Henry was already captivated by the beautiful and charming Catherine.
Now I have a stupid question.
Yeah.
It better be stupid.
What exactly does a lady in waiting do?
Ladies in waiting are essentially the attendants to the Queen. They help her dress. They like get everything ready in the rooms. They are companions. They're essentially just like the household. You know, think of all of the stereotypical things you can think of that a royal lady would need. Her ladies in waiting, you know, they bring her food, they dine with her, that kind of stuff.
Got it. And so are they called ladies in waiting because they're always waiting for her to say that she needs something?
Yeah, they wait upon her.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. That makes sense too. All right. Sorry.
And they would all
sorry for the interruption.
And they were all like aristocratic in their own right. So they also all had like maids of their own who would dress them. They would do the actual like
it's a pyramid
cooking
scheme.
and stuff. Yeah, there's levels. There's levels of hierarchy.
Maids all the way down.
So some say that the Duke of Norfolk saw that Henry was looking for a new wife, and that's why he called Catherine to court, because he was like, oh, maybe he'll want to marry Catherine, and he like pushed Catherine in front of the king. It's not clear if that's actually true, if it was like a power grab, because he knew that if he were to marry Catherine, then the Howards would go up. He would like put them in positions of power and stuff. It's possible that that was the case, but we know that on July 28th, 1540, just a few weeks after his annulment to Anne, Henry married Catherine. Again, he was a rotund, scraggled mess of a man with a leg ulcer that was gross and smelly. He was 49 and she was 16 or 17.
That's disgusting.
Horrible.
On the same day that he married Catherine,
49.
49.
Okay, you're 17 years old. 49-year-old comes up to you.
Hey, you look pretty. You should
Hey, what's
smile
up?
more.
Hey.
How old was Jerry Seinfeld when he was dating that 17-year-old?
Too old.
Too old.
Way too old.
Ugh, if the answer is not 17, it's a problem.
Yeah. Maybe 18 if they were dating before. But no.
Yikes.
He was 38.
He was 30. Yeah. What's the deal? What? Oh, God. No, I'm not going to do that. All right, keep going.
On the same day that Henry married Catherine, he had Thomas Cromwell executed without a trial.
Okay, I figured that was coming.
Yeah,
he's like,
we all saw it coming.
Definitely coming at some
you
point.
made me marry this chick with the nose. You're out of here.
Yeah, so he was executed on trumped up charges of treason because they said that he aided a religious rebellion, but like most people agree, he was executed because Henry resented him for pushing Henry into marrying Anne of Cleves and for, in Henry's eyes, deceiving him of Anne of Cleves's quality, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
Catherine Howard took the motto, "No other will but his," as the queen, which looking back on is extremely sad. Henry was apparently head over heels in love with Catherine. The French ambassador remarked on how much he caressed her at court, how he showered her in gifts and luxuries. He did the same move of making sure her family were moved into positions of power. Henry's daughter, Mary, hated Catherine Howard because Mary was way older than her new stepmother. But
Really?
apparently Catherine's relationship with Elizabeth and Edward were pretty good, both still alive. Apparently, Catherine was really gracious and welcoming. She was especially welcoming to Anne of Cleves, who she maintained a friendship with and danced regularly with at court. She seemed to be really good at reading the room. She kind of knew like when she should stay silent, when she should crack a joke. She was warm and lovely, and apparently Henry really loved her. Things started to go downhill for Catherine when she had an unexpected visitor from her past show up at court. It was none other than Francis Derham, her ex and maybe abuser. He had followed her to court,
100%.
and he used her position to force her, basically blackmail her, into giving him a job in her personal household. So she appointed Francis to be her personal secretary, which was a really...
the word personal, it's a bad move. Just be like, you could be the cook in 30 miles away in some cabin.
Yeah.
And then have him executed.
It wasn't great.
Kill him.
It's not great. That's not a good look for Catherine.
Where was the king being like, kill him? Like, he's killing everybody else. How many people did he kill? 50,000 people?
He didn't.
Make it 50,001.
He didn't really know. And at this point, he didn't know the history between like Francis and Catherine. Francis started boasting to people about how much she favored him and how he used to know her. He would get drunk and mouth off. And so I think she was kind of...
bad move.
And absolutely buck wild behavior given the events of the last like 20 years. Like, did you not fucking see?
Yeah, also, that's the Queen of England you're talking to. That's not just some chick who works at Arby's.
Yeah, absolutely fucking
her
wild.
husband is the fucking king, and you think that mouthing off is going to do good things
And
for you?
he's
Is that
tyrannical.
good for you?
You shouldn't do that to women who work at Arby's either, though.
You shouldn't do
by
that
the
to
way.
true,
anybody.
yes. You shouldn't
But
do that to
also, given the situation, don't do it to a king, because that's really how you end up dead.
And also
In
the
an
Army people,
official
because
manner.
they got the meats. They got the meats.
Yeah. Like in an official manner, and not her boyfriend Derek shooting you in the parking lot. Go on.
I think she was really in a keep your friends close and enemies closer situation
Life
with
lessons
him.
from Andrew.
Like, she didn't want to make him angry because then he would, who knows what he would say. During her time at court, yet another man had become infatuated with Catherine. This time it was Thomas Culpeper, a garbage, absolute piece of shit friend of Henry VIII. Thomas Culpeper was known for not being particularly interested in consent in his pursuits of women in the past, but he was never punished for anything that he did because of his close relationship to Henry. Rumors were that Catherine and Culpeper had flirted before she married Henry. There was a rumor that they had maybe discussed marriage before she married Henry. Did she actually like him, or did he just pursue her? Was she just keeping him at bay? Did he take advantage of her? Like, there's no way to know, but his history says yes. Unfortunately for Catherine, any involvement or infatuation that Culpeper had with her didn't really end once she married the king. They were still in contact. So people from her life kept popping up again and again, not in a good way. Derham snaked his way back into her life. And then the brother of a girl who she grew up with went to Thomas Cranmer and informed him that his sister didn't want to go to the court of the new Queen Catherine because of her quote unquote light actions at the house that they grew up in. And so Cranmer
What does
was
that
like,
mean?
it means that she was loosey-goosey.
She took the slow train from Philly.
Yes. And so Cranmer saw it as his duty to inform Henry, who immediately didn't believe it. He was like, no, there's no way. She's chaste and beautiful. She loves me. So he ordered an inquiry to get to the bottom of the accusations. The investigation would prove to uncover not only her actions growing up, but much, much more. So they found, indeed, that Catherine had been engaged in a sexual relationship with Francis Derham and Henry Mannix, and that Derham was currently employed as her secretary, which did not look good for Catherine. Actually, Mannix wasn't even implicated at all in the trial until Derham was like, yeah, but also Mannix did it. So, Derham was fucking crazy. Cranmer also found out that a lady-in-waiting, Lady Rochefort, the widow to George Boleyn, Anne Boleyn's brother, who was executed, had been secretly facilitating meetings between Catherine and Thomas Culpeper while the king was away in Scotland. They turned over their quarters and they found a letter from Culpeper to Catherine where he called her my sweet little fool. They also found a letter that Catherine had written to Culpeper saying, "It saddens my heart to think I cannot always be in your company." And she signed the letter, "Yours as long as life endures."
Whoa.
Ooh.
Doesn't look good.
Oh.
Now, historians...
Why would you write that down, dog?
Yeah, so it's a question. Historians are have debated this, like whether or not this means she was in love with him or not. Some who reinterpret it look at it in a different context, and they paint a picture of a young Catherine kind of doing her best to appease this ambitious and forward man without drawing his anger, because he probably knew about her past and her past relationships, and she didn't want that to get out, so she was trying to keep him from wielding that knowledge for his own benefit and keeping him at bay. Unfortunately, we can never know exactly what went down, but we know that she wrote it, and that was bad. So
Well, okay.
Cranmer, yeah.
I don't feel bad for King Henry because he's a piece of shit.
I only feel bad for Catherine Howard, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel like there's gotta be I find that you can't judge people for how they act when they're in abusive relationships, and I feel like she's in 3 simultaneously.
It's rough. And you have to remember,
And she's 17.
She's 17, and Tudor women during this time had no power in society. They were literally less than second-class citizens. So how much you can actually do to refuse people, especially men in this time, is there's not the most that you can do. But Cranmer went to Catherine to get the matter sorted because the king apparently didn't want to believe rumors and lies, which fucking since when? That's what you executed
that's
your
his whole
second
thing.
wife about. But he was so in love with Catherine, he didn't want to believe it. And so when Cranmer went to Catherine, he found her in a terrible state. She was hysterical and rambling, swinging from vehemently denying the accusations and then
I thought you were about to say Vietnamese. I was like, wait, what?
vehemently denying the accusations.
She was speaking Vietnamese. It was crazy.
And then sobbing and admitting she did it while asking for forgiveness. And so it was the unfortunate task of Cranmer to get the confession and inform the king that his beloved wife was not as chaste as he believed. So they arrested Derham and Culpeper. Derham had said that they entered into a marriage contract, but there was no evidence of that because after her step-grandma found out about it, she raided Derham's office and burned all of the letters between Catherine and Derham. Culpeper
Sick.
denied any
Fucking
relationship with the
grandma's
queen.
a fucking G, dude.
She was like, this is not happening. Eventually, Culpeper did confess that he did pursue her with the intent of sleeping with her, and that was enough to sign his death warrant. Catherine was imprisoned again at this time, or she was imprisoned at this time, and during her time in imprisonment, she wrote letters of confession. In these, she denies any involvement with Culpeper, and she speaks more broadly on her and Derham's relationship, saying that he pursued her and that he wanted to get married, but that she made no such promises to him, and that he was angered by other people's envy of their relationship, and so he wanted them to be publicly affectionate, which is why she agreed to call him husband and wife, but that they weren't married and they were never going to get married, and that she didn't really want to be with him, but that he pursued her. She alludes to a kind of a non-consensual relationship between them.
So super creepy, possessive guy forcing her to be in a situation.
Being like, "You're my wife. Call me husband." And she's like, "Okay."
Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it illegal for the queen to be in a relationship before she gets married?
That is such a wonderful question, Andrew. Thank you for asking that. It is not. It is not illegal for the queen to be in a relationship before. It's not treason, at least.
So let me guess. They trounced up some treason shit just like what they did with Anne.
Oh yeah, let's fucking get into it.
It's treason then.
In her final letters of confession, she says that Francis Derham, by many persuasions, procured me into his vicious purpose, and asks Henry to consider the subtle persuasions of young men and the ignorance of frailness young women. But this confession letter may have been guided by Cranmer as a way to help her case, because this one was way more concise and used different language than the first one. She apparently wrote 3. One was lost to time. The other one we have, and we talked about. This one, it was written in her hand, but it seems like maybe Cranmer was trying to help her out a little bit. Both Derham and Culpeper were found guilty of treason and executed. Derham was found guilty for taking advantage of Catherine and for blackmailing her for a more advantageous position. Culpeper for intending to seduce the queen, and for one comment he made to someone saying something to the effect of, yeah, I would want her if the king were to be dead, which meant that he was hoping that the king would die and he was plotting against the king, and that was treason. Culpeper petitioned to be beheaded instead of the traditional traitor's death, which was hanging, drawing, and quartering. Because of his friendship with Henry, Culpeper was granted that, so he was beheaded. Derham was given the traditional traitor's death, and both of their heads were displayed on the London Bridge. And Henry was just absolutely devastated. He was like, how could she have done this to me? He believed that she was in love with him and wanted him and him alone, which is like, why would she want you? Nobody wants you. Further rubbing sand in the wound were rumors and jokes of Henry's impotence, which was like a pretty well-known rumor at this point and probably more fact than rumor, and how Catherine had essentially cuckolded him by having her quote-unquote lovers under his nose in the public opinion. So she was detained from November of 1541 to February of 1542. And she was in this limbo because, as you asked, Andrew, it wasn't treason to have sex before marriage. A physical relationship with Culpeper after marriage was never proved. And if she had been in a pre-contract marriage with Derham, then her marriage to Henry could have been annulled because it meant that she was married before and her marriage to Henry was invalid. But in her confession, she said, no, they weren't married. So they weren't exactly sure what to do. And so essentially what they did was they made up a law to get her out of the picture. In February of 1542, they passed the Royal Assent by Commission Act, which made it treason and punishable by death for a queen consort to fail to disclose her sexual history to the king within 20 days of their marriage, or to incite someone to commit adultery with her.
Who added the 20-day part? That's weirdly
I know,
specific.
that's weirdly specific.
There's like those people who get like super up in arms about body counts or whatever. Fucking assholes.
Yeah.
The 20-day limit could be to cross like language barriers.
Yeah, like travel time, maybe.
Yeah. You know,
Yeah,
he
for
was
when
married
you
to someone
marry-
who didn't fucking speak English.
You have to learn 20 days to say, I had a boyfriend before.
So Derham was drawn and quartered?
This
Yes.
had
Hanged,
sex.
drawn, and quartered.
Oh, so he was hanged to death and then drawn
Yes.
and quartered,
Yeah.
or was he just hanged to? But okay, well, it would have been super cool if they drawn and quartered him while he was still alive.
I don't believe that they did so.
Metal.
She was taken to the tower. She had to pass under the heads of Derham and Culpeper because she had to go under the bridge where their heads were posted. Her execution was set for Monday, February 13th, 1542. She was around 18 years old at the time, and they had been married for just under 2 years. The night before her execution, Catherine apparently asked for a block to be brought to her room so she could practice laying her head on it.
That's the saddest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's really sad.
Wow.
Like, just her in her room just being like, well, I guess I'm gonna die. Might as well know what I'm getting into. When she approached the scaffold, she looked apparently pale and terrified. She needed help climbing up the stairs, although it's said that she maintained relative composure. She mostly stuck to traditional final words, it seems, asking forgiveness for her sins, acknowledging she deserved to die for betraying the king, who had always treated her graciously. She described her punishment as worthy and just and asked for mercy for her family and prayers for her soul. Really similar to Anne Boleyn's final words, likely in an effort to protect their families, you know, because their last words are relayed to the king. And then she was beheaded with the executioner's axe in what I see as the most tragic story of his wives. Not to diminish the pain and suffering of Anne Boleyn or anyone else, but she was just so young. She never expected to be a queen or a royal. On multiple occasions, she was taken advantage of by men. And even if she wasn't taken advantage of, because in the discussions of Catherine Howard, it's either like she was abused by these guys or she was a whore. Like she wanted it or she didn't. Even if she did want to be in a relationship with these dudes, then she was constantly not allowed to be with the person who she wanted to be with because this fucking old guy thought she was hot. And she paid the ultimate price for it. And at the end, also, it was the haters that brought her down. It was her crazy ex and the brother of a dude that she grew up with. Like, they hated her because
That
they
goes to
ate
show.
her.
Block all of your exes, dog. Just block them.
Like,
Yep.
That's super rough. And so that's the story of Catherine Howard. The saddest one, honestly. Henry was super depressed. So, like, he was depressed after Jane Seymour died. He was depressed because he hated Anne of Cleves. He was depressed because Catherine Howard didn't like him. He was getting old. His health was getting worse. And after the debacle that was this marriage, he was so like deep depression, worst physically, suffered the most chronically from his leg ulcers. He struggled with headaches, swollen ankles, constipation, many other physical complaints, probably impotence. He was in constant pain, which was undoubtedly a factor in his decline into even worse tempers and being a tyrant. There was no modern day medicine. He couldn't pop an Advil, like.
Milk of the poppy for you, sir.
But he wants to keep his mental faculties. He couldn't get up on his horse anymore. They carried him around in wooden chairs. He was
Here's more
pretty
beer.
unkempt and unwashed most of the time. Feed him some beer.
Didn't they make a weird man crane for him to get onto his horse?
Yeah, they had to hoist him up when he did need to get on a horse.
Oh, that was him?
Yeah.
That's fucking
Ew.
wild.
So he's like Cartman from the World of Warcraft episode of South Park.
Yes.
I've never
Yeah,
seen it, but I
exactly
think
that.
yes.
You should watch it. And then imagine
should.
King Henry at that point.
Yep.
So at this point, he was 52, and he started looking for a new wife. He started looking at the ladies of the court for someone new in classic Henry fashion.
Yeesh.
In another classic Henry fashion, he went with someone who was the opposite of his previous wife. So, to remind you, he went from Catholic and regal Catherine to Protestant and fiery Anne. Then he went from fiery Anne to demure Jane. Then he went from English Jane to German Anne. And then he went from ugly and standoffish Anne to beautiful and charismatic Catherine. And then he went from young Catherine to a slightly older, 2 times widowed, highly intelligent, different woman named Catherine. Catherine Parr.
Okay. That's good. 2 times widowed means that her exes will not be around anymore.
They are dead.
Yeah, and how old was she?
She was approaching 30, which is crazy old in Tudor England. She was a lady waiting in the court of his daughter, actually, of Mary. So she was born in 1512. She was, which would make her 4 years older than his eldest daughter. She was the daughter of a noble and substantial northern family. She was extremely intelligent, very highly learned. Her father was a close friend and advisor to Henry, which gave him a substantial position of power in the court. And Catherine Parr's mother had been close friends and an attendant to Queen Catherine of Aragon. So much so that Catherine of Aragon was the godmother of Catherine Parr, and Catherine Parr may have even been named in Catherine of Aragon's honor. So let that,
Yeah,
Jesus
that's
fucking
let that
Christ.
Shit.
sink in a little bit.
Stop. God damn it.
Everything that you just explained sounded like Charlie trying to explain who Pepe Silva is, but it actually all making sense.
Pepe Sylvia.
So yeah, his last
There's no
wife.
Catherine and Anne and Catherine.
Yeah, so his last
I
wife
said
was
Cromwell.
goddaughter and named after his first wife. Talk about full circle.
Wow.
Catherine's initial education was similar to other well-born women, but she developed a passion for learning that she would continue throughout her life. She was fluent in French, Latin, Italian, and she began learning Spanish after she became queen. By the time she had married Henry VIII, like I said, she had been married twice before. Her first marriage was at the age of 17 to a man in his early 20s. The marriage lasted about 4 years before her husband died. She had no children. She married her second husband in 1534, who was a high-ranking member of the court and a lot older than her, and actually a staunch Catholic. So the religious situation in England at this time was far from settled. So we know that Henry had broken with the church, but many people in the country disagreed with that. They wanted to stay affiliated with the church, but they didn't want to say it too loudly. Henry made things really difficult as well because he was still a Catholic. He just did it over here now. He just didn't give a shit about the Pope, but he didn't change anything about how or what they worshipped. He was still Catholic. He just didn't have to listen to the Pope. So, a lot of people...
It's basically just Catholic, but I can get a divorce.
But I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
And so, it made things kind of murky. And in 1537, during a religious uprising known as the Pilgrimage of Grace, Catherine Parr and her stepchildren in her marriage were held hostage at their home by Catholic rebels who disagreed with the king and disagreed with her husband. They ransacked the house. They sent word to her husband that if he didn't return immediately, they would kill his family. When he returned, he managed to talk to the rebels and managed to get his family released, and they were able to leave. But the whole aftermath and the whole ordeal was horrifying, and it quite possibly drove Catherine Parr into the arms of the Reformation even more wholeheartedly, which she already was a Reformation sympathist. The whole thing kind of left us a stain on their name, the Latimer name, which was her last name at the time. So they lived pretty low key for a while, but after a bit, they started coming back to court, and she found that she loved the atmosphere of court way more than living in rural buttfuck nowhere.
It sounds like court was dope as fuck, dude. Like every one of these people that came to court is like dancing and having a fucking great time.
Yeah, it's great. It can get you killed, but it's a good time.
It definitely like risk versus reward.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
And especially because she had such a high intelligence and like a thirst for knowledge, she could really flourish in court. Out living in the country, there was no one for her to talk with. No books to read. There was, so in
Chickens.
There's a lot of chickens. In 1542, her husband's health started to decline pretty rapidly. Over the next year, she nursed and cared for him as a good wife should. She kept up his household affairs. She cared for his children. He died a year later in 1543. So she was now a very rich, twice widow. That's when she used her connections from her mother to get a place in Lady Mary's court, Mary Tudor's court. So by February of 1543, she had established herself as part of the court, and it was there that she caught the attention of the king. Also in classic Henry fashion, she had already found someone that she wanted to marry by the time that Henry decided he liked her. She had started up a flirtatious relationship with Thomas Seymour, brother to the late Queen Jane Seymour. They had discussed marriage, but when Henry proposed to Catherine, she knew that she couldn't refuse him, so she put aside her feelings for Thomas. She saw it as God's will for her to marry the king, and she married Henry on July 12th, 1543. Henry was 52 and Catherine was 30.
Okay. Did she disclose that she was flirting with a guy before?
Yeah, Henry knew, and he actually sent Thomas Seymour away. He was like, get this guy out of here. Sent him to a different country. He sent him to the Netherlands to like do some political thing.
Oh, killed him.
Go do Netherlands.
Go to the Netherlands.
It's like in Breaking Bad when they're like, yeah, he took a trip to Belize.
No, he was alive. He didn't kill him. Catherine ended up being...
Kill him with stroopwafel.
You make him never want to leave. Catherine was a superb queen. She got along really well with all of Henry's children. She was even partly responsible for their reconciliation with their father. She urged Henry to pass another act of succession to reinstate Mary and Elizabeth to the royal line of succession behind Edward, who was still alive, who was about 7 years old at the time, which he did end up doing. Under her pressing, Henry invited his previously deemed illegitimate and disinherited daughters to Christmas in 1543, which sparked a reconciliation between the family. The following spring, he restored them to the succession order. Edward, his son, was apparently very fond of Catherine. The then 9-year-old called her his most dear mother, and in September of 1546 wrote to her, "I received so many benefits from you that my mind can hardly grasp them." A 9-year-old wrote that. Poor little guy didn't have a mom. And she was kind to all of his kids. She ensured that all of the children continued their educations, and she herself continued her pursuits of knowledge well into adulthood. She was the first woman to publish a book in England, at least under her own name. The first book she wrote was called Psalms and Prayers, Taken of Holy Scriptures, which was a translation of Latin scriptures. It ended up serving as a really popular and powerful piece of wartime propaganda designed to help Henry win the war against France and Scotland via the prayers of his people, and really bolstered the people's support of the English. One of these translated psalms was included in the Book of Prayer, which is still used to this day to pray for the British monarchy. She was so proficient and talented at statesmanship that Henry allowed her to rule as regent in his absence when he went away to France for a couple months. Because the Regency Council was composed of sympathetic members, including her uncle, Thomas Cranmer, Catherine obtained effective control and was able to rule as she saw fit. She handled provisions, finances, the musters for Henry's French campaign. She signed royal proclamations. She maintained constant contact with lieutenants in the northern marches over an unstable political situation with Scotland. It's really thought that her actions as regent, along with her strength of character and her intelligence and her dignity, and her religious convictions, greatly influenced her stepdaughter, Lady Elizabeth, who would go on to become one of England's best monarchs, Queen Elizabeth I. She wrote another book called Prayers or Meditations, and like her first book, it was a bestseller. In this book, she reworked a Latin scripture to have it be spoken as a monologue from an English Christian speaker. Princess Elizabeth actually translated this work into a couple different languages as a New Year's gift for Henry a couple years later, and presented him with a beautiful hand-embroidered manuscript, which he apparently loved. So it was really likely.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Sorry, before we get too far. This episode has been very wife-heavy. What has Henry been doing this whole time.
Bro, I tried to look at like what he was doing, and it seems like the answer is fuck all.
Yeah, because like the last episode, there's a lot of dumb shit that he was doing. He was being an asshole to everybody, but it seems like he's really taking a backseat since his legs don't work anymore.
Yeah, like he's going to France. He's managing the political situation. He's trying to avoid war. He's trying to get money for war. He's
being forklifted onto horses.
Yeah, that's basically what he's doing.
I mean, but also like, I don't know. Let's center the women for once.
No, I'm not saying don't. I'm just wondering, like, I haven't heard his name in a while.
Yeah, he's just kind of he was away to France for a while.
Like,
you know,
he's still a piece of shit. He's just doing piece of shit things, not as involved in his own court, it seems.
Yeah, and it's super likely that the education that Catherine gave Elizabeth and Edward, especially the Protestant views that she had, influenced both Elizabeth and Edward, who would both adopt Protestant policies in their times as rulers. So if Anne Boleyn set the Reformation in motion, Catherine Parr really helped to cement its hold in England and continue it into the future. As we said, there were still many people who were Catholic, including Henry, and Reformation politics had really stalled in Henry's later years. As we said, he hadn't really been doing much. So when Catherine Parr got a little too overzealous with her Protestant leanings, those who didn't want to see Protestantism take place in England attempted to dispatch her and push Henry into the arms of someone else. These Catholic supporters tried to whisper into the king's ear against Catherine to turn him against her by saying she was trying to change his mind about religion, that she shouldn't be meddling in his business, because she and the king had lively debates about religion and its history and future, and the king apparently was growing a little tired of being lectured at. This plot almost worked. In 1546, arrest papers were actually drawn up and someone was sent to arrest Catherine Parr, but she was too smart for them. And she managed to get out of it by being the good wife that she was, by placating Henry and saying how she only debated religion with him to take his mind off the pain from his ulcers. And she thought that he liked engaging in those thought experiments with her as a way to escape from the rigors of politics and his failing health. But if he didn't want her to continue, she would stop and he would hear no more of it.
She had to tell that to the cops and not him?
No, she told that to him when someone came to arrest her.
So she said, no, you.
She said, no, I thought you liked it. I'm sorry. And whatever exactly she said to him worked because she was not arrested. Maybe he was also just too old and tired at this point to go through another trial with another wife and get married again. So when they came to arrest Catherine, she was walking with him through the gardens and he apparently sent them away and nothing ever came of the arrest warrant.
Did he know that they were coming?
He had to have.
Like, yeah, like there's no way that cops can get into the fucking royal palace without him knowing.
Yeah, so like at one point he was like, yeah, I don't like how she lectured me about religion. Yeah, and then she was like, I'm sorry, I won't do it anymore. It's okay. And he was like, yeah, it's fine. He died not too long after that.
I wonder if that was like a scheme though. Like if that was like, if she wasn't listening to him when maybe he was like, you know, trying to push, you know, like somebody does something and you're not direct with them about it. And they keep doing it. It's like, I feel like that was happening. And then he's like, you know what? I just need the cops to tell her.
Maybe. I mean, who knows? Either way,
he died.
He died not too long after that. On January 28th, 1547, Catherine became the Queen Dowager and Henry's son Edward ascended to the throne at only 9 years of age.
How did he die? How did he dead it?
Oh, he...
Hopefully in immense fucking pain.
He died of a lot of different stuff. Complications from diabetes, heart problems, his terrible infections from his leg ulcers.
It all came at once and got him.
Yeah, he had a lot of shit going on.
So let's make up how he died. Bo?
His bird form finally took over, and he ascended to the heavens.
He bird raptured.
Like a phoenix from the ashes.
Bird raptured.
All right, Zach.
I think that all of his illnesses kind of peaked at the same time, and his body just kind of dissolved into some sort of goo while he was in bed.
There's ghosts in his blood.
Yeah, while he was sitting on the throne, he just kind of turned into goo, like that senator in the first X-Men movie.
Oh god, that's a great visual. I appreciate that visual.
Great fucking pull.
Yep. I like it.
All right, that's beautiful. Justin, how did King Henry die?
It was like 3 days of nonstop shitting, and his body just couldn't take it anymore, and he eventually died covered in shit.
Okay.
He
I
died
like
as he
that.
lived. Shitty.
I like that. I'm gonna go with he was forklifted onto a horse, but he was so disgustingly gross and just awful that when they released the forklift, whatever, release it for him
The
to
winch.
go onto the horse, the winch. He landed on the horse, but he was so huge that when he hit the horse, it was like watching a Honda Civic going 90 miles an hour right into a pole, and the horse wrapped around him multiple times, and it killed him.
Why do you have to kill the horse too? That's rude.
The horse survived.
The horse was fine.
The horse magically survived as the first horse that was shaped like a roller coaster.
The horse killed him, actually. I changed my answer. The horse got him. Was the horse?
The
horse
last
got me.
suit of armor that was made for him when he was doing his campaign in the last year of his life, the waist was 52 inches. He went from a 32-inch waist in his youth to a 52-inch waist in his old age.
And he went from a muscular 32 to a pudgy 52.
Yeah. So Catherine became the Dowager Queen.
Well, Ash, how did
Yeah.
he die?
He died of diabetes and heart problems.
Sure he said.
No, but like how did he die?
I think that he was laying there and he was like, I don't feel so good. I think that maybe, and then he just died. And then he shit himself.
Mid-sentence.
I agree with Justin. He shit. Dude, there was just so much.
And
There's
then
shit a
the
lot.
ghosts of his wives were dancing around his fucking dead body.
Stabbing his dead body with their ghost knives.
He died from illusion, so it's like, they're like ghost wives. He's like hallucinating because like he's just dying at this point. And he just sees all his wives going.
Yeah, he was like,
"We're
no,
back,
he was-
motherfucker!"
He was just like feasting on pheasant and drinking beer, and then he just stopped and froze, and then
Oh, the Elvis
slowly
part.
fell.
Yeah.
Slowly fell over and died.
That-
it's shit.
so all of his wives are around him in ghost form, and then he like dies in his bed, and then like his ghost form comes up, and all of his wives like he can see them. He can see them now because he's now a ghost, and they all have brass knuckles on, and they're like, "Oh motherfucker, it's time!" and they just
Wrong
start beating the
afterlife,
shit out of her.
Motherfucker. Yeah.
Oh, you think you went to heaven? Welcome to hell.
One of them has a bat with a nail through it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Other one has an
They're probably
F-16
Anne
for
Boleyn,
some
honestly.
reason. They
Or Catherine
weren't
Howard.
invented yet, but she had one.
It's like that scene from Airplane where they're like smacking the shit out of the lady.
Oh,
and
yeah,
the
yeah,
line
yeah.
just keeps forming,
Mhm.
and it's just more and more people that he's beheaded
Just-
with progressively worse and worse weapons.
All of the ghosts of all the people he beheaded just open up a fissure in the earth and drag him to hell.
And then he burns for eternity.
I feel like there's a movie reference. What movie is that?
Drag you to hell.
Oh,
Mummy Returns.
The movie Ghost, where they drag him into the sewers.
Yeah, the Mummy.
No, there is
Tremors.
an actual movie.
Tremors.
Tremors. Absolutely Tremors. And
Well,
Tremors too.
Tremors is great, but also has anyone else seen the movie Drag You to Hell? Drag
no,
Me
I
to Hell.
haven't.
No,
Sorry.
I've
heard
seen
of it,
Tremors.
but
I
haven't
feel
seen
like
it.
that title gives it all away, so I'm not going to watch it.
Yeah.
Well, it's a Sam Raimi movie. It's really good.
Let
I
me
think
guess.
it's
They get dragged to hell?
Whoa.
Is Bruce
Well,
Campbell
it's all
in it?
about the lead up.
Are there any Tremors in it?
Actually, I don't think Bruce Campbell is in it. It's from 2009. It was the last movie that he directed before they brought him back to do that Doctor Strange.
He's going to talk about movies.
This
You
is
got to
not-
stop him. You have to
I was
stop
going to
him.
say, Catherine Parr has never seen a movie because they didn't exist when she was alive. She became Dowager Queen. She was left a hefty allowance by Henry VIII. She retired to her various manors. Her zeal for religious reform only increased after Henry's death. The new king, Edward, the boy king, he was too young to rule on his own, so a regency council was comprised. Regency council was dictated to help him rule, and it was comprised of many Protestant members of the Seymour family. The circumstances around this regency council are a little bit sketch. Some Catholic advisors were being denied access to Henry in the last couple months of his life. The most two powerful Catholic advisors were convicted of treason. Some say that his will was altered after he died. But under the boy king Edward, his son, the tide was turning in favor of Protestantism. She published her third book, Catherine Parr, The Lamentation of a Sinner, which promoted the Protestant concept of justification by faith alone, which the Catholic Church deemed to be hearsay. Essentially, it was just like, your faith is all that you need to get into heaven. You don't need to like have a priest tell you that you can or whatever, read you rights or anything. She also completed an English translation of Erasmus's paraphrases upon the New Testament with help from those sympathetic to her cause. And they eventually published it and gave it to every parish to obtain a copy. So many generations of literate parishioners would have encountered lengthy dedications praising Parr's learning because of this book, her commitment to the vernacular Bible, and her role in the English transformation. Her story ends kind of sadly. She ended up marrying who she originally wanted to marry, Thomas Seymour, which is good. But unfortunately, Thomas Seymour was a gross asshole because he married her because Lady Elizabeth, Henry's daughter, became a ward in Catherine Parr's household after Henry died. So she moved in with Catherine Parr. And Thomas Seymour wanted to marry Elizabeth. So he married Catherine Parr instead, hoping to get close to Elizabeth.
Ew.
It said that she was 14 at the time, by the way, and he was in his 30s.
Ew.
Yeah.
Okay.
This, of all of the recurring through lines that we've had in various episodes of this podcast, this one's my least favorite.
It's bad. And Catherine was weirdly complicit in the inappropriate behavior that Thomas Seymour made against Elizabeth. It's well documented how inappropriate he was with her until she got pregnant and she sent Elizabeth away. So Catherine got pregnant by Thomas Seymour at the age of 35, which was a shock because she was childless up until this time, up through 3 marriages, and she was seen as really old at having children for the time. She gave birth to her only child, a daughter, Mary Seymour, named after her stepdaughter, Mary Tudor, and she died a couple months later from what's thought to have been childbed fever, which was an illness common due to lack of hygiene around childbirth, was probably like an infection. Thomas Seymour was actually executed for treason after her death because he immediately tried to marry the then 15-year-old Elizabeth and seize power and become the king.
Nice try, fucker.
Wow.
Yeah. Her funeral was held on September 7th, 1548, and it was the first Protestant funeral held in English. And that ends the story of the wives of King Henry VIII. At the time, scandalous story filled with religious reform, a lot of death and gossip. A time so crazy that people are still talking about it today, and people in England continue to write stories. People in England continued to write stories to recount the happenings well after their deaths, and now it's a story told globally.
Hold on. The end of the last podcast. You left it as a cliffhanger.
What happened to the boy?
So who ended up on the throne? Who can...
He is a boy, and he's alive for now. And now you're ending the story? Oh, you better have some information.
I want to know what happens.
All right, let's talk about his children a little bit.
Guys. Oh.
Don't J.J. Abrams me with Lost right now.
So,
come on.
Edward ruled under his regency council. He set up the structure of the Protestant church in England. He attempted to cement the Reformation in England. Most notably, they did away with clerical celibacy. Pastors could get married, and they did away with mass. Said that
pastors can fuck.
And said that all church services should be done in England. Also, it's funny, when he was crowned at the age of 9, the ceremonies were really short because of the tedious length of the same, which should be weary and hurtsome, pre-adventure for the king's majesty being yet of tender age. Essentially saying...
And the theme was dinosaurs.
Essentially saying he was a little kid and it was way too boring for him to sit through.
I gotta pee.
I respect it.
Why didn't they just give him an iPad?
Are we all home? Get the king. Oh.
Also because a lot of the ceremony, they hadn't been altered post, like, for this Protestant rule. And so a lot of them had, like, references to Catholicism that they, like, just cut out. They were like, we're just not going to say those parts. Remember how I said they think that Henry's will could have been altered? This new will had an unfulfilled gifts clause that was added at the last minute, which said that the executors were free to distribute lands and honors to themselves and the court, meaning that they could take whatever properties and titles that they wanted and give them to themselves. And though they were supposed to rule as a council, a few days after Henry's death, the advisors all named Edward Seymour, the king's uncle and the Duke of Somerset, to be Lord Protector of the realm. Conveniently, all of the advisors seem to have received a bribe from Uncle Edward, not to be confused with Boy King Edward. And luckily for Uncle Ed, he had a will from the king that let him redistribute wealth and titles as he wanted. Coincidence? So he became the de facto king for a while until he ran the country into financial ruin and into a bunch of costly wars, where until the council was like, hey, actually, we're supposed to all be in power and you suck. And so they had him beheaded.
Good.
They quickly gave power to another named John Dudley, who was king when Edward died at the age of 15, which from what was probably tuberculosis. He ruled for just about 6 years.
Gotta watch out for tuberculosis. It'll come and get you when you least expect it.
You.
That's from Bo. Take that home with you.
You know what? I'm looking at pictures of Henry VIII, and I feel like I've seen this guy. Like, I feel like I've seen people who look exactly like him in Boston.
Yeah, they have turkey legs too.
Yeah, that turkey leg. After Edward died, it was actually kind of a interesting situation because the next in line was Mary Tudor, who was a staunch Catholic. She was going to revert the country to Catholicism. And they didn't want that to happen. So they devised a plan to keep that from happening by persuading or just taking over and proclaiming that Edward said that his sisters should not take the throne upon his death, but rather it should pass to his first cousin and conveniently daughter-in-law to John Dudley, the de facto king, a 13-year-old named Lady Jane Grey, and any heirs that she might have. She was actually crowned in London to general discontent. And then Mary Tudor showed up after having heard of this plot and writing to all of her vassals and gaining a bunch of support, especially among the Catholics who didn't want to see the Protestants win. She basically showed up with an army of 20,000 people, and the tide quickly turned.
We give up.
They were like, "Oh, sorry, nope, it's yours. My bad.
Our bad. Here's your crown. We had it nice and warm
It's
for you.
warm for you." Lady Jane Grey and her husband were arrested, and Mary Tudor took the throne as Mary I. And Mary actually spared Jane at first, but then Jane's father, who orchestrated the whole plot to begin with, and who was allowed to go free, mind you, she imprisoned Jane and not the guy who, like, put her on the throne, but whatever. A little bit later, he participated in a rebellion against Mary, and so she executed everybody.
Okay, fool me once, get executed.
Essentially what Mary said. Mary's like, "I'll let you go this time." Are you trying to... You're done. Kill him.
Kill him.
Kill him now.
Kill
And
him
all
now.
of them.
Mary Tudor would rule for about 5 years.
Do it.
She's known to history as Bloody Mary because of her very strong
Oh, that's
Catholic
her.
faith and her penchant for burning heretics at the stake. In 5 years, she burned around 300 people at the stake for heresy,
Jesus.
Fucking rad.
including
Just like your dad.
our good old friend, Thomas Cranmer.
Good.
She totally burned him.
Aw.
And he was like, well, so under her rule, he was like,
very upset.
"Okay, I'll be Catholic." And she was like, "I'm going to execute you anyway." And he was like, "Well, fuck you. I'm not actually Catholic. Protestant forever."
Protestants rule.
You can't burn me. I quit. Wait.
And then she burned him. She died at the age of 42 during an influenza outbreak, although it's thought that she had abdominal or uterine
Can't get
cancer.
you.
So she died from the flu that makes you hot. Irony?
Okay.
The fever?
She
That's a joke.
burned up.
I get it.
She
I
burned
get
him.
it. I get it.
Uh,
I get it.
Guys,
Yeah.
Jesus
I
Christ.
understand.
I
I'm
gotcha.
sorry. I'm
No,
Sorry.
sorry.
I got it. I was just letting it. What do you just?
I
be
would.
quiet.
I feel like I would much rather be beheaded than burned.
Oh,
at the stake.
absolutely.
Yeah.
1,000%.
Much rather do whatever it takes to be beheaded than.
Don't be a heretic. Be a traitor, not a heretic.
Or get
Gladly.
fucking wrapped around by a horse. That sounds pretty good.
Or turning into goo.
Yeah.
Don't forget the goo route. Not a lot of people
Goo
take the
death.
goo route.
I
Yeah.
go goo.
After Mary died, Elizabeth took the throne in 1553 at the age of 25. Elizabeth, who had to walk a very careful line while Mary was the queen, she pretended to be Catholic. She managed to avoid implication of treason and keep her head. Elizabeth's reign would usher in a golden age of English history and cemented Protestantism in England once and for all. She would rule for 45 years.
Under her, fuck yeah.
Yeah, under her rule, she fostered not only like art, education, and culture in England, it was under her initiatives that William Shakespeare became popular. She was also a great military leader, and under her rule, England became a military and political powerhouse. They defeated the Spanish Armada's invasion of England. She rode to her shoulders. Elizabeth rode to her soldiers on horseback on a white steed, wearing a white velvet gown and a steel cuirass, with a plumed helmet and a baton in her hand, and she delivered a rousing
fucking
speech to the
badass.
troops. A really dope-ass speech.
Andrew, how'd that speech go in your English accent?
Oh, hello. We're British. Oh,
I can-
and we're going to win.
I can read it to you if you
This-
want.
Oh.
Yeah, but do it with an accent.
I don't think I can do that.
All right, send it to Andrew.
Hey,
He
wait,
can do-
send it to me. I'll do it.
Anyway, so it's dead air right now, so I'll take care of this. Anyway, what we're doing? We're
You
doing
know,
fucking
I'm an editor, right?
no, we don't. Listen, hate dead air.
We said at the beginning
doesn't
of it
like
that this is live.
Yeah.
We said at the beginning that it's live.
All
Do
right,
it
I got
live.
I got it. I'm
and
ready.
only
I'm ready.
live.
right, get that accent. Then halfway through, try to be a British man.
Well, she was a woman.
Oh,
I know.
my
So
loving
switch it.
people, we have been persuaded by some that are careful and our safety. My dog's barking. To take
Hates you
heed on
talking in
how
English accent.
we commit ourselves to armed mutatives, the fear of treachery. Oh God, I'm going Australian. But for fear of treachery,
You're getting
but I
Scottish.
assure you, I'll do not
All right, this
desire
is
to
terrible.
live to distrust my faithful, loving people. Let
That
tyrants
was a little
fear.
South African.
Give me some fucking stubbies, mate.
After this paragraph,
I'm
Zach,
3
do it.
sentences. I've already
Okay.
got through 7 fucking seven things. Someone take over. Go.
All right, Zach, go.
I know I have the body of a
You
weak
skipped
and
an entire
feeble
paragraph.
woman,
You skipped
but
a
I
whole
have
paragraph.
You
the-
skipped a whole paragraph.
Well, you told me that he started
Also,
that
does not
paragraph.
sound like a weak and feeble woman. Just a heads up.
That was the joke.
Oh,
Okay, continue.
This
But
part's
I
cool.
have the
You need to
heart and
read this
stomach
part.
of a king
No, you skipped
and
the
of
You
a
skipped a
king
really
of
good
England
part.
too.
She said,
Wait.
I am come amongst you as you see at this time, not for my recreation and disport, but for being resolved in the midst of heat and battle to live and die amongst you all, to lay down for my God and for my kingdom and my people and my honor and my blood even in the dust. That's pretty
Yeah, Zach,
badass.
go.
Ew.
It's really good.
I know I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king, and an English king too. And think foul scorn that Parma or Spain or any prince of Europe should dare to invade the borders of my realm. She's like, yeah, get wrecked.
I like how she said, I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have a stomach of a king. She's like, I can eat mad food, dog.
Have you seen my
I think it
dad?
meant more
Yeah.
that she was brave.
Oh,
Oh, I thought she's like, I could slam Sandos pretty hard.
I think
That's what you like?
meant
I
more she
ate
had
3 of
resolve,
them
yeah.
before
3
this
bites.
speech.
3
She,
bites. All right,
and
Justin,
she essentially said, like, I love my country. I love my people. I'm badass. Y'all should think I'm badass because I am. You're all going to be greatly rewarded after this war. Let's fucking go.
All right, yeah, Justin, last paragraph, go.
I know already for your forwardness you have deserved rewards and crowns.
Come on, do
She's
it with an
American.
to
accent.
assure you
She's American.
on a word
accent.
of a prince, they shall be duly paid. In meantime, my lieutenant general shall be in my stead.
Lieutenant.
Then whom never lieutenant, of course.
Oh, we covered that last episode.
I actually looked
Then
into that a
whom
little
never prince commanded a more noble or worthy subject, not doubting, but by your obedience to my general, by your concord in the camp, and your valor in the field, we shall shortly have a famous victory over these enemies of my God, of my kingdom, and of my people.
Yeah, Hear, hear. Har, har.
bit.
Har,
Spanish. Yeah, that's basically
Yeah,
how
Columbus
it
was
went.
a dick.
I looked it up and I saw that the English take the spelling of the old French, which is L-E-F tenant. It's the same word, but it's spelled differently, and that's why they say lieutenant. Also because they thought that
I
the
like Justin's
second in
version better.
command should be standing on the left of the captain, and that's why he's called the lieutenant.
Huh.
I
But
thought
also probably
that-
because they hate the French, you know?
That's a very British, like, literal on the nose thing.
I thought that it was lieutenant because they are in command in lieu of the person above them.
I thought it was lieutenant because it was a guy named Lou.
I don't freaking know. What's etymology? Linguistics?
He's from
Who's
New
to
York.
say? Yeah, I'm walking here. But yeah, so she cemented herself with this speech as she had portrayed herself in her whole reign as a powerful and godlike ruler of England, and she was fucking badass. She would
But
have.
she wasn't married to Henry, though.
No.
Henry was her father.
That's her daughter. Yeah, that's Henry's daughter.
This is about the wives of kings.
Okay, well, you wanted to know who ended up on the throne, and
You
if,
know what?
if what he
you know
did.
what? Hold on. He probably would have tried to marry her. This because he's a piece of shit. So, all right, continue.
She would have no children, and she ended up leaving the throne upon her death to her first cousin twice removed, a man named James Stuart, who was Henry VIII's sister's great grandson and the current king of Scotland.
Not trying to figure that one out.
The family tree around this time is a little bit more of a circle than a line. Elizabeth naming James as her heir meant that Elizabeth would be the last of the Tudor monarchy. So for all that we went through with Henry trying to keep his line and cement the Tudor dynasty, his daughter was the last Tudor to ever rule in England. Elizabeth naming James as the heir was the unification of England and Scotland, and it's why England and Scotland are one country now. But yeah, that's where the Tudors end with Elizabeth. After all that, it was just his daughter with Anne Boleyn, who he concocted a plot to kill, who ended up being one of the greatest rulers of English history.
That's actually hilarious. Like, all of this effort, all of this douchebaggery, all of this fucking around, and his legacy is a woman on the throne who does so much better than him.
Yeah, it's his badass daughter that he never wanted, that they had to write in different ink, princess instead of prince, was sick and rad and way better of a king than he ever was, who actually did stuff for her country and like positioned her country politically and militarily and culturally.
It didn't try to fuck a bunch of young people all the time.
Yeah, she famously was the
Everywhere.
virgin queen. She didn't fuck anyone. She saw what her dad did and was like, I'm not going to do that.
I'm curious too. So you said that during this time she was part of like the whole like Shakespeare, like getting
Mhm.
Shakespeare to do Shakespeare things.
Yeah.
Was her speech before or after he wrote Henry V? Because there's a really badass speech in there that sounds a lot like hers for rousing the troops and getting them ready for battle. That I could totally see him being like, "That's good shit. Write this down."
I think it was after. I'm not 100% sure on that. Shakespeare stole from Elizabeth I. You heard it here, folks.
Facts.
And
Mhm.
we do know that she wrote her own speeches and her own poetry because Elizabeth was like super intelligent. She was always like the best in her class. Her younger brother Edward was always trying to like keep up with her intellectually. I mean, he was a lot younger than her, but she was known for being really smart and eloquent. And so it really helped when she was on the throne that she could write these like rousing speeches and inspire people with her wit and her intelligence.
All right.
All right, yeah, so that's the story. That's all I got for you. We talked about all the wives. We talked about what a piece of shit he was. What'd you guys think?
This is a hell of a story.
I like the part when he died.
Yeah, was that your favorite
That,
part?
that was really good.
Yeah, I love when he turned into
really
goo.
really good arc for him was when he turned into goo.
Zach, what was your favorite part?
Well, the part when he turned into goo was pretty good. I think my other favorite part. I mean, it's tough to beat the really good speech at the end because the rest of the story is kind of depressing.
Yeah, I mean, I think my favorite part is how Anna Cleese was able to be a baller at the end of her life and just like
It's a good point.
just ball hard.
Yeah, that's my favorite part.
Justin, what was your favorite part or favorite thing you learned?
I really like I said, I like the fact that his legacy pretty much amounted to the exact opposite of what he wanted.
Get fucked,
And
Henry.
that makes me happy. Also, I just quickly looked it up. Queen Elizabeth's speech was 11 years before Henry V was supposed to be written.
Hey.
So Shakespeare probably was like, "That's dope."
Taking inspiration
I'm
from
gonna
that
do that.
dope ass speech. Hell yeah. That's pretty sick. All right, cool. Zach, you brought us into this podcast. Do you want to take us out?
Hey, what about me and
What
Bo?
the fuck?
Oh, I thought you guys said your favorite
fuck was that?
You started by saying your favorite part was when he turned to goo. I thought that was your
What the
favorite part.
fuck? Oh my god!
Oh,
No, I said I like when
Oh,
he died.
okay. I'm sorry. What was the favorite thing that you learned, Andrew?
Oh my god!
God,
Jesus Christ!
consistently fucking forget.
I legitimately thought that was both of y'all's favorite parts.
Goo was a giant goo.
I'm sorry. I thought so.
You thought that? Oh my!
Andrew, what was the favorite thing that you learned?
My favorite thing is when everyone realized that me and Bo are now the stepchildren of the podcast, I guess. But also,
Call me Step-Bo.
I like when he turned into goo.
Yeah,
Oh.
see, I wasn't wrong.
I liked when the horse wrapped around him and killed him. I liked
That's not
that
a real thing. That's something
Anne
that you made up.
of Cleves cleaved him with a cleaver. No, I like that Anne of Cleves survived. Proud of her for that. I like that she drank and gambled and hunted and did cool shit for the rest of her life. And then my favorite part was when Henry got stabbed by the ghosts
Cool.
And
Thanks
dragged
for
to
that.
hell.
and dragged to hell.
What was your least favorite part? Because you always talk about your least favorite part.
All the rape.
That'll do it.
Yeah, that was bad.
My least favorite part was all of the stuff that happened to Catherine Howard.
And everyone else, honestly. Like, it's rough. Bo, what was the favorite thing that you learned?
Did anybody mention the goo?
I don't.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Why don't you tell us?
You might as well take it.
So this king died, and just became goo. His goo. Like, you ever watch that
His
South Park
goo smelled
episode?
so bad.
You ever watch that South Park episode where
Oh, yeah,
they
Rob
stab
Reiner? Yeah.
Rob Reiner? He got my goo.
He's like, my goo,
my precious
goo.
That's how he died. Nah, but I think we're
This
all
is two South Park episodes that we have been referenced in this one episode.
I think we're all in consensus. It's awesome that his daughter ended up fucking being like one of the best too,
Right?
and did it so promptly.
So
And her last thing in line is to unite two kingdoms, something her father couldn't do. Oh,
Her goo was the best goo.
yeah, she had
When she died.
No, well, she saved her goo. That's why, because she had no children.
Yeah, it's in the Smithsonian in England right now.
And
Just a
of course,
bucket of goo.
and of course, what's her name? being a boss bitch, and Aunt just being a boss bitch and just living it up. Like, yo, no children, no party, no children.
Yeah,
weighing
she
me
was
down.
just a cool aunt.
I'm gonna drink and know things. Like I said earlier, she's that cool aunt. It's like, here, you want some wine? Don't tell your mother.
Party doesn't stop. I'm gonna go live
Your
in my
mother's
ex-husband's
dead.
ex-wife's house.
Your mother's dead. You want some wine?
But why do you make all of your aunts talk like that when you do impressions of them?
Because that's how all my aunts talk.
Like, hey, don't tell your mother.
They've been smoking for 40 years. How's your mother doing? Oh, wait. I'm sorry to hear.
Come rub my goiter.
Don't touch the goo. That was Grandpa.
What's in that jar? It's your grandfather.
Well-
It's his goo.
Hey, Ash, what was your favorite thing? I'm not going to forget about you. I never would.
I liked the whole thing. I liked researching the whole thing. It's always interesting to get into the specifics of it.
I can say from the experience of living in the same house as Ash that Ash has put a lot of work into this episode. And I think it shows. This is very well done, very well researched. I enjoyed it. I hope the listeners enjoy it as well.
I hope the listeners like it because I struggled so much on what to keep in and what to leave out because I wanted y'all to have the full story.
And that you did. You left no goo unturned. Zach, take us out without saying
Well, there was something that when we were in the car the other day,
he
I
almost did it.
thought to myself that I should really have a catchphrase that I say at the end of each episode. But I can't remember what it was that I said. So hopefully
Jesus.
for next episode, I'll
Just trying
remember
so
what
hard
this
to say
catchphrase
mom.
is. Kind of like the sort of situation where you're like,
Eating at 'em.
hey, no, grab
There it is.
the thing and
There it is.
do the thing.
He
Oh,
did
wait, did I
it.
say
There's
it?
the
I said
catchphrase.
it?
Yeah. Each
Ah,
fuck.
is the catchphrase.
All right, well, I won't say it from here out. I won't say it from here out at all. Okay, check it out. If you like this episode, tell your friends to listen to Get Dumped On, the Infodump podcast. Follow us on Instagram at Get Dumped On
Oh, did it. He did it. He just did it.
Podcast.
He just did it.
Wait, I did
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Yep.
I also thought when you were like, I'm not going to say it this whole time. You just wait. I thought you were just going to not say anything.
Yeah.
Just go silent.
You know,
He just stopped recording.
I hate dead
Email
air.
your feed if you have feedback.
Oh my
No
God,
more
why
else.
did I think you were
have
going
a
to say
letter.
feet?
If you
Email your feedback.
Send me the feedback.
if you have feedback or you want to send us a letter that we can read on air or something like that, email it to getdumpedonpodcast@gmail.com. Tell Bo
Oh
that
God,
he's
don't give my parents
handsome.
that power.
Dude, I've listened to Zach talk so much on editing these things. I know exactly when he's going to say every time. Just keep going, and I'll
There's
just
a
say
bit
it
of a
with you.
pause.
Thanks for listening. Tune in every Hump Day Dump Day, 4:20 a.m. That's when we drop the episodes. And,
We broke him.
okay, now everyone say your name. I'm done.
I'm done as well.
I'm done as
my
well.
name is Goop. I'm Goop.
My name is
Jeff.
My name is Jeff. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. Goodbye. Thanks for
Hey,
listening.
goodbye.
Bye.
Love you, bye.
It's a great aunt. Goodbye. Oh, yo, boy, oh, boy.
Ash and Zach are super smart. They went to college and learned a bunch of stuff. And Bo and Andrew didn't go to college because that's just the way life goes sometimes. What happens when you put them together and you try to make them learn? Grab your friends, let's listen together on Get Dumped On an Info Dump Podcast.
Stop, that's a terrible sound. Stop doing that.
Could you
That sounds
imagine?
like
I should do a characters with my racist uncle and add a hand. I've seen conversation.
No, Uncle Bew again? He's coming back?
Oh, God.
You
I thought we sent him away to the farm.
Oh, I gotta go by. He's in the Netherlands, actually.
Bye.
He hurts
Yeah,
my
he's in
temples
the
when I
Netherlands,
talk.
Death by Street Waffle.